Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Mind Map. This is the captain's log, and last on, our ship had malfunctioned, tossing us into System 657B. A simple planet, nothing on our scans indicated any sort of complexity, any sort of life form to note about, but there were always surprises on the horizon. The warp drive dragged us through a wormhole and pulled us out into an open sky. Green lined the atmosphere in a golden greenish glow as its twin sun system shined at noon midday. I did not know what time it was on the central curve. I had lost that completely. And, of course, having entered a new universe, my body had changed drastically. But we landed the ship well, promptly, let's say. There were some issues on the descent, some strange clouds that I would need to investigate and do studies on later, but mostly because of their density. Now, we landed the planet, and the first thing I remember seeing was a glint off in the distance, some bright shining thing, a tower of light reaching off into the sky. Didn't know what it was, but it was certainly signs of life or some form of complex molecular arrangement on this planet. Something typically only organized by sentient life forms. I turned to my charts master as we landed and said that it was quite a smooth landing, and he replied back with some chagrin at the unfortunateness of our emergency landing. I wasn't pleased either, but what can we do? First, we needed quark crystals. That was the most important material. Without them, we couldn't repair the deeply integrated system engine. It was, think of it like nerves throughout the entire ship, made up of quark streams, little rivers of tiny, extremely hypercharged particles that can't bond with each other. Complicated stuff. Don't worry. We have an engineer for that. I don't need to worry about all that. So, I prepped myself with a spacesuit. It was I want to say, the Model 22? Yeah, the Model 22, because they had just come out with a Catch 44, some sort of joke from the creator from 400 years ago, when Earth was still just a little planet with no extraterrestrial engagement or discovery under our belt, and no aliens that we knew of. I wasn't alive, of course, but if I wanted to, I'm sure I could find a universe where that is still the case. While the central curve time is unified. Okay, I don't need to go into all that. So, I set foot on the planet, and the first thing I felt was a crunch, like dead leaves off of a tree. Yes, we have trees. We grow them on our spacecrafts. Scientists say that if you spend too much time away from a planet with nature like your genetics need, your biosphere gets all out of whack. So I set foot, and there was this crunch of leaves. And beneath my feet were these glowing crystals. Not quark crystals. That would be far too lucky. No, they seem to be of some sort of silicone dioxide make, as many crystals are, with perhaps beryllium involved. Probably a very useful crystal for some sort of creation, but nothing I could use on my ship. We use titanium and boron and all sorts of californium and all sorts of different elements. Anyways, so this crunching sound beneath my feet made me look down, and there were these crystals. And from the crystals, I sort of gathered this view of the landscape. Before me, there was rolling open fields, but not fields of grass, fields of these crystalline-like structures on the ground. And off in the distance were mountainous-like structures. Clearly, this planet had tectonic action, likely a magma lake under the surface of this rock out in 657? 657B. Yes, that's right. And so I look around, and the green sky against these sort of purplish pink crystals had this very interesting contrast. Not anything like what you'd see on Earth or Mars or any of the other terraformed planets that humanity has made home to. I looked all around for any sign of life and took out my scanner, my jib scanner, I suppose you'd call it, to sort of check if there were any heartbeats or pulsing or any form of life. And the only thing I noticed was that there was a significant amount of noise on the scanner. It seemed that all around me, from every angle, there was life. Which didn't make sense, because unless the whole planet was alive, like Gaia, God, what a nightmare Gaia was, I didn't really exactly know how life could be surrounding me on all fronts. So I set off. My spacesuit was under fine condition. I did a final check before I left the ship, and off in the distance there was what looked to be a very, very, very blue, sapphire blue lake. Way off in the distance, past this field of crystals, there was this sapphire blue lake, and I figured maybe that would house what I needed, or at least it would give me some indication of civilization that could get me to some quark crystals, or at least knowledge of where the nearest quark crystal was in this system. I mean, 657b was sort of a backwater planet on the scans. No one had... Well, the last person who had been here was Carmichael Jr., you know, the explorer from way back when, the guy who did all those movies about himself. He fought with the Gords. You know, that type of shit. Anyways, so I set off in the direction, and I put on my little Hermes skis. For those of you back home who don't know what Hermes skis are, they're essentially these little glider boots. They have wings on the back of them. They're supposed to mimic a very, very old myth from Earth about Hermes, the god of the messenger god. He delivers messages. He has these boots. Whatever. I had a pair of Hermes, and I skated off in the direction. And suddenly, as I'm skating along towards this lake, every crystal beneath me moved for just a second. It was like it all shifted in a direction. Goodness, I've never done a captain's log like this before. So it all shifted in a direction, and I was taken aback. I stopped, I skidded to a stop and looked down, and I picked up one of the crystals. And inside, there was this tiny little organism. Just this little tiny, like, what do you call it? A bug type thing. Like, squirming around in there. And I swore I looked at it with such curiosity. And I put it in my satchel. They were clearly eggs of some sort. I'd never seen crystalline-like eggs. I assume, though I never got to see it while in my time on 657, that these eggs would hatch and the creature would incorporate the crystal into itself, which is an astonishing development. Presumably crystalline structures, especially this silicon-beryllium mix, was a very big part of this planet's atmosphere. I assume that some meteor or meteorite rain crashed here a long time ago and created these structures, or there was a large volcanic eruption. I scanned the environment as soon as I thought of that and couldn't see any volcanoes around me, but who knows. So I continued along to this lake with my new little egg, and I figured there would be a structure of grown individuals of these crystalline beings down by the lake, or somewhere. And of course, off in the distance, past the mountains, though I could not see the origin point, was still this massive pillar of light, this beacon. Fuck if I know what that was. And just so you know, the green sky, I did some scans on it while we were coming in, and I forgot to tell you, but it was made up of, I think, sulfur and oxygen. So if I wanted to, I could remove my mask, though I don't think the sulfur would be great for my lungs. But the concentration seemed quite similar to the nitrogen-oxygen mix in our air. So presumably, there was some sort of sulfur in these crystals as well. I inferred that it was likely beryllium, sulfur, and silicon, and the silicon's heat signature, or the silicon energy signature, was hiding the sulfur in some way. Now, I desperately, as a scientist, wanted to crack open one of these crystals. But I knew that I would need an incubation chamber and some sort of way to keep these creatures safe, so I continued along. skating along, zoom, zoom, zoom. I skated down to this lake, and there were these crystalline growths, like trees, if trees were made of crystal, essentially. And these crystalline growths were like sort of ringed around this lake. So I knelt down by the lake and I stuck my little scanner proboscis into the water and quickly discovered that it was some sort of sulfur compound. Some sort of sulfur acid. I would guess sulfur dioxide or sulfur trioxide or sulfur methyl oxide or something similar. So obviously I wasn't going to touch it, but my proboscis was fine. It's made of diamond, I think, actually, which is really cool. They don't use diamond for rings anymore. They use some sort of titanium, beryllium, and technium crystal, because it's even harder than diamond. But diamond is still a cool compound that the universe has created, you know. Infinitely bonded carbon. Pretty gorgeous. Anyways, so I get down by the lake, I test it, and, well, there's it's not water, so I assume that the life here, if this little thing in here is life, because it's squirming around like life, is run on some sort of other substrate, not water, maybe this lake substance, this sulfur acid, which is fine. Any kind of acid works for life. Just so you know, reader, listener. Though I guess there'll be a transcribed version of this for the captain's log, because having it in the database as a written thing would be good for the ship, just in case we don't have some way to listen to it. Okay. So I continue along, and I do a quick scan of under the water, and there seems to be some sort of life form under there, but it doesn't look evolved. So I just decide to go in the direction of the beacon. So I continue skating, and I skate up the mountain, and it's maybe a day's journey by the light of the sun. So the green sky falls to this it's a blue and yellow star up in the sky. That's why it's got this green glow to the atmosphere. And I assumed that was also contributed to the sulfur. So this mix of green light is reflecting off of the sulfur and being super bright because the sulfur sort of helps it as a catalyst along. And just like nitrogen in Earth's atmosphere and in the new atmosphere of Mars and the new atmosphere of Saturn and the new atmosphere of Neptune all have that blue tint because of the nitrogen. So I travel up this mountain, and I'm getting up this mountain, and I look off in the distance, and there are these strange flying masses darting in and out of the clouds. And I guess to myself that they're some other form of life, but again, not presumably sentient, otherwise they would have picked me up. So I assume that if there is sentient life on this planet, well, it's got to be at that beacon. So I get to the top of the mountain, and you know what I see? Wide open, expansive landscape. I mean, mind-blowing. Lakes dotted everywhere of this yellow sulfur liquid, and this pink fields of these creatures. I mean, this planet was infested with these things. I guarantee you, they were either farm animals or the sentient life of this planet. I never got an answer, and you'll see why. So, and there's these lakes and these massive pink fields of these crystals and these strange bluish pink tree formations everywhere, and there's several really large formations of these massive crystals growing in different parts. And I look off at the beacon, and it's just a crystal. Maybe, I don't know, a 400th of a parsec long. It reached into upper atmosphere, and the light reflecting out of it was definitely just a concave reflection. And then I started to look at this light more specifically, and it looked like this flayed out rainbow of all of the shades of green, blue, and yellow. Oh my God, gorgeous. This tower of green, blue, yellow light. And I'm looking out at it, and I think to myself, there's no fucking way that we are finding quark crystals here. So I radio back in. It's not radio anymore, but I radio back in to home base, and I tell my charts master, there's nothing we can do. There's no quark crystals. And he says, "Well, sir, we'll need to search harder." That's what he sounds like. He's a goofy guy. Also a wonderful cook. So I decide, well, quartz crystal might not be here, but that crystal, the one that's reflecting that massive beam in the sky, might be strong enough at least to hop us to the next universe, the next sentient universe, somewhere where we can get some actual life on our hands. So I begin to skate over. And as I am nearing this crystal, I feel a rumbling beneath my feet. Now, everything in the Starship's Guide to the Galaxy protocol says you turn back if there is signs of life that is bigger than gigantic size. End of story. But I'm not the smartest starship traveler of all time, and I do have some balls on me. I am a brave motherfucker. Brave and brash kind of go hand in hand, but I can be brave. So I put on my best face and get out my blaster and laser sword and figure, fuck it. Let's go. Laser swords look different from how they do in Star Wars. Just as you know, it's more of a glaive than anything, but they call it a sword because you're supposed to hold it like a sword and use the bottom end as a repelling tool in case there's low gravity on the planet. Just so you know, the gravity here was approximately 4 Marses and 2.5 Earths. I think that's the conversion rate. I don't know. I'm not updated on it in a long time. On our ships, we operate on 0.3 Earths because it's better for your bones, it's better for your health, and you expend less energy, so you need less food. Just simple math. Our warp drives take care of that. Little black hole at the bottom of the ship. Super fucking cool technology. Pulls everyone down, also creates the energy needed to travel and drag space-time in front of you so you move faster. Light years aren't light years anymore. They're light days. No, I'm kidding. That's not how that... Light years are a measure of... Okay. Distance, not time. Whatever. So, I hear this... I feel this rumbling. I hear this rumbling. And I just continue skating along to this crystal. And the rumbling is getting a little further away from me in the distance, but it seems to be approaching me. And I'm getting worried. And beneath my feet, by the way, these the Hermeses are crushing these crystals. Little life forms floundering and choking to death on the lack of water in there, or not water, sulfur acid in their system. I'd guess it rains here, and when it rains, the creatures hatch. But no clouds in the sky. It didn't seem like a storm was approaching. So I get close to this crystal, and the rumbling starts to increase beneath my feet. So I stop. And then the rumbling travels just a bit of a distance away, and from the ground emerges this massive whale shark crystalline creature, jaws of fucking heaven, crushing through the earth like a land shark, and it bites this massive portion of earth, and it sails into the sky, and it dives back down, and I know I am fucked. I am fucked. If I don't get out of here with that crystal or without it, I am screwed. That thing is going to come up beneath my feet and eat me whole, and I bet you dollars to donuts it's got a much more powerful version of that acid liquid in that lake in its stomach. So I bolt the fuck towards the crystal. I am like zooming. I put on my back jets, and I zoom through the sky. I start to actually fly, because the Hermeses can go through air, and the back jets sort of propel me faster. I must be going, I don't know, a fucking 1/5 of a light year per second. I'm just kidding. That's an over-exaggeration by a lot. But still, I reach the crystal in no time, and I start carving at it. I do a test on it. It looks to be some sort of deuterium proton crystal, like not hydrogen, but it's some sort of, and it's really cold to the touch, obviously. It must be preserving its energy somehow. I have no idea. So I start digging in, and I figure the deepest I go will be where I'll find whatever powerful crystal I need. It could be quark crystals, but it won't be strange quarks. We need strange quarks. Charm quarks would work, so if it's charm quarks, we're good. Obviously, I know the end of this story, because this is an after the fact, but still, the captain's log must continue. So I drill in, and this land shark is appearing behind me, and suddenly I hear it. There's another, and this one pops out of the earth even bigger than before. It comes out, and I swear to God, I shit myself. Maybe I shouldn't have admitted that. But still, it's not going to matter. I'll clean myself and I'll clean the suit out. The clean chambers are lickety split, you know? So this massive creature jumps out of the earth. And I'm just drilling it away at the crystal like fucking nobody's business. I'm using my laser glaive and my fucking gun to blast through this rock. And I'm getting in and deeper and deeper and deeper. I'm cutting this little hole into the fucking rock. And I get in and I see this liquid inside of this crystal curling around. And it starts to slowly seep out. It's like the thickness of, like really thick honey or glass. Excuse me. Glass. I had a beer before this. Yes, we still do beer in space. For those of you back on Earth, it's a thing. We ferment our ale, or our crops that we grow. We mostly grow corn and millet. Millet seems to be pretty damn effective. And beans. We grow a lot of beans, obviously. And mealworms and grasshoppers and rabbits, actually. Rabbits, because they eat those grasshoppers, are a great food source in space. Anyways, they don't look like Earth rabbits, whatever. So I'm drilling through this rock and I get to this liquid and it's flowing slowly through this crack that I've made. And I put my tester into it and the tester starts to melt. There is almost nothing in the universe that can melt diamond. So I'm like, fuck, that's bad. So I take out my technium material. It's like a metal alloy, not quite a metal, not quite a rock. Something close. It's like this little vial, and it can house basically anything in the universe. It's super cooled, and it super cools itself because it's got like temperature memory. New thing that scientists figured out about 3 years back. Cool stuff. So I put a little bit of this in the vial. There's nothing I can use to test it, but I figure it's got to be some sort of charm quark serum or a mix of up and down quarks that haven't bonded together yet, like basically the heart of a star, essentially. It's the only way we can feed our black hole to keep it going, to keep the warp drive moving. So I bottle this shit up and I put it in my backpack, and now I know I either gotta fight or run. So I zoom out as fast as I can, and these land sharks are following me, man. I am zooming. I am fucking flying across these plains. I fly across the water, or not water, the acid of these lakes. One by one, I'm passing these lakes, and there were maybe 13 or so lakes between me and the mountain, and then another one lake beyond that, and then the field of the crystals and my ship. And I can imagine in my mind, I'm zooming across this lake, and these land sharks are jumping out of the fucking earth, trying to chase me. And one of them gets narrowly close to me, and I swipe back with my glaive. Sorry, I'll try to stick near the recording device. I swipe back with my glaive, and I cut it across its nose, or whatever it has to breathe. Big holy mass, like 5 or so holes scattered around its face. Maybe blaster marks. And I slash across it, and it dives back in. And then one of them dives up at me, and I swear I was in its mouth, and a blast rockets off from the upper atmosphere. And I look up as I'm zooming, and above me is a ship. Massive ship, claw-like in structure. Looks like kind of like a lobster of sorts. Blasters in the front of the ship pointing backwards. Giant cannons, and a massive gun pointing down that is smoking. And ladies and gentlemen, I'll have to leave it there. That's episode 1. And next time, you'll meet the aliens of 657B. And they are impressive. Oh, God, I don't know how to work this thing. Captain's log over. Meet us next time. We'll catch up. Come back next Wednesday, Central Curve time, if I can update myself as to what that is once we get our ship fixed, and I'll tell you about what happened yesterday. Thank you.